Aloha! I wanted to talk to you today about love and how love is always the answer to everything, and how, in my experience, a lot of people, they allow others to treat them poorly, and how love is always the answer, especially in regards to that. So, I've given this a lot of thought this morning, and I want to talk to you about how real love behaves and how even when someone loves us, maybe they're mistreating us, and why, and how to deal with that. So, the first thing that is very important to understand when you're dealing with love is to understand that love is a free commodity. Not only that, it is boundless. There is a limitless amount. It is literally the most, it is in the greatest supply of anything known in the universe. It is not this limited thing. A lot of people have the attitude today that love is this precious commodity similar to a precious metal or a precious stone, and there's only a tiny bit of it in the world, and so you have to guard it and keep it all locked away, and I'll give you this amount of love for this amount in return. And that's just not how love works. That's not how real love operates. It's not how it behaves. Real love is freely given and freely taken in return. There's nothing ever asked for. And that's something that's very important, especially when you're talking about relationships where maybe they are doing that. They're holding on to their love, they're guarding it. And everybody knows somebody like this. This is very common, often because people are mistreated, abused, maybe even just teased too much in high school. You know, it's something that is very, very prolific in our day and age, and I feel like our generation, my generation, deals with it more than other generations in the past ever have. And even the generation after me, I see them dealing with it on an almost epidemic level. So what do you do when you're faced with a person who is guarding their love, holding their love back? Well, it's very important to understand one thing, and that is that when a person is reacting to you, whether it be them asking for love, holding back love, they are reacting to you the way that they see themselves. So a good way to demonstrate this is, if I can get this open, there we go. Imagine, every time you talk to a person, imagine a mirror up in front of your face, and understand that they are mirroring how they feel about themselves. Okay? They're not looking at you. They're not reacting to you. They're reacting to who they see in the mirror. So, one of the first steps is don't blame them for how they treat you. Understand that they are damaged. Understand that they have most likely been hurt a lot in their life. They don't need for you to attack them for their mistreatment of you. Okay, that's not going to help the situation. But at the same time, you need to love and respect yourself enough to not allow them to mistreat you. Or if you're in a relationship, whether it be family member, friendship, a romantic relationship, if you are currently in a relationship with someone who is mistreating you, you need to understand how to ask for those boundaries back and how to deal with them. So now that we've gone over how love behaves and how the other person is seeing themselves, let's go over how do you deal with someone when you have figured out that they are not treating you okay and that they are not treating you with real love, with free love. Free love, that's the key there. If their love is not free, they are treating you with disrespect and they are not treating you kindly. So if someone is like this in your life, the first thing you need to ask and answer is whether or not this person is willing to change. You know, if you're very close with them and you really love this person and you want to continue a relationship with them, it will require you maybe sitting them down and talking with them about their treatment of you and assessing whether or not they are willing to change and put effort into your relationship with them. And again, this is any relationship format, family, friend, romantic, it doesn't matter. We're discussing all types. Now, on the other hand, this could be a person that you just deal with on a semi-daily basis, you're not very close to, you can pretty much cut out of your life except for a few areas, and we'll get to that towards the end. But for right now, let's deal with close relationships. If you are dealing with a person that is close to you and they are mistreating you, one of the best ways that I've found is you sit them down and you go, hey, I don't like being asked, well, can you do this, this, and this in return for this amount of love or this amount of affection in this particular area? Can we work it out where I freely give you this and you freely give me that? There's no trade-off here. And there's been a couple situations where I've sat friends down and they've responded very well to that. And there have been other situations where they have not responded very well to that and have gotten very upset, very defensive. Sometimes these people, because they've been hurt so much, they feel like you're attacking them, even if you do it in the kindest manner possible. And if that happens, you need to understand that they've just been hurt too much, and no amount of putting it kindly is going to make a difference. They are going to feel attacked because you are changing the boundaries on them. And they've set these boundaries up in place to make sure that they never get hurt again. And oftentimes, when you change these boundaries, they feel like, well, you're setting me up to hurt me. And so don't take it personally. Don't react harshly. Understand that they are coming from a place of, what are you doing to me? So, reacting back isn't going to help. Maybe just end the conversation on a positive note, say goodbye, just don't continue the conversation, because it's not gonna get any better. Now, if that happens, the other thing that you can do that I've had some success with, like I said, each person is different, each situation is different, each relationship is different. You have to kind of judge these things. But one of the other methods that I've found that worked really well is I had this friend who I really, really loved them, and we had a great friendship, we had a lot in common, but I began to become aware that she was not treating me very nicely in these very particular areas. She was asking for certain favors in return for certain friendly affections. And this was a person where I had kind of tried to sit down and talk with them, and it didn't really turn out the way that I had wanted. there wasn't a good response, so I just kind of ended it and rerouted the conversation to something that we could both be excited about. And so I thought long and hard about this, and we were in a group situation. I think we were hiking or something of the sort. And she wound up asking for certain favors in return for certain other friendly favors. And I turned around and I looked at her and I said very nicely, no. And she was shocked, and everybody turned around and they're shocked. And I said, I don't feel like it's okay anymore. I've thought a lot about this, and I don't think it's okay anymore to ask for certain things in return for certain other expectations. I want relationships where I give freely to other people and they give freely to me. And everybody was like, what is she doing? What is she doing? And this person, my friend, her eyes glazed over, and it took a minute or two for her to return, but when there was this little light that turned on, and she's like, I never thought of it like that. So see, for that particular person, in that particular situation, it worked better to confront her in a group environment. And like I said, this was done very nicely. It wasn't done in the form of a confrontation. It wasn't done in anger. It was just said simply like, hey, here's an idea. Let's not do it this way. Let's do it this way. And for a while that worked. She tried. She did improve. And it was funny because the friends that we were with actually came around to really adopting that principle of thinking. And she eventually went back to some of her old ways, and all of us had to kind of cut ties with her. And so that was kind of sad, but I learned something very valuable. For years and years, I had held on to this relationship, holding on to the edge of cliff, going, are you going to get this? Are you going to get this? Never confronting her about how she was treating me, just holding on for dear life to this friendship, going, please understand how to love really. Please understand it. And, giving her little small hints, but I'm still hanging on the edge of that cliff, waiting for her to change because I love her so much. And when I finally did confront her, like I said, those people that we were with, those friends of ours that we were with, they changed. They changed and their lives got better. And it helped me understand something very important, that when we love and respect ourselves enough to ask for love and respect from others who are not treating us so right, it teaches other people in our lives, other loved ones that we have, to ask for love and respect in their own lives. So we're not just asking for love and respect for ourselves. We're teaching those around us how to ask for love and respect themselves. And when we ask for respect ourselves, we teach others to respect themselves, we reach this point of understanding where our relationships grow on a whole new level. And the love that's given and taken between those different relationships is much greater, and it's much freer. So that's another way you can deal with it. And that's another thing to think about, our responsibility to the other loved ones in our lives. Now sometimes, like with that friend that I was talking about, they change a little bit, but then they go back to their old ways of thinking, or they just don't change enough. They just keep abusing. They keep not giving love freely. Now, when that happens, a lot of times, we have to consider whether or not it's worth it to cut ties. And that's happened to me on many occasions. And it's very sad, when that happens. But something to keep in mind is when we are going to cut ties, or when we are going to put up a lot of boundaries, that these people will sometimes react, they will sometimes not react, but either way, we are making a better world for ourselves, our other loved ones, and our lives will be better. And if that person that we're putting up a lot of boundaries with or cutting ties with someday understands the principles that we have tried to discuss with them, they will come back and they will be a part of our lives again. So it's not as though they are permanently lost to us. Now, this brings up the point of boundaries. Boundaries. To understand boundaries, and I get this a lot, is you have to understand the difference between boundaries and walls. People are always asking, well, what is the difference between boundaries and walls? Aren't they the same thing? No. No, they are not. Walls are like brick walls, literally. There's nothing from your side getting over to them. There's nothing from their side getting over to you. And while some may think that this is an effective way of dealing with people, it is not a healthy way of dealing with people. Boundaries, instead, I'm going to use the mirror again, are like putting up a two-way mirror in front of you, in front of that person that you are making the boundary with. Now, what this means is that in putting up this boundary, or this two-way mirror, we are only allowing them this far, and they can only see themselves. But what this also allows, it allows us to interact with kindness from the other side. This is how boundaries are very different from brick walls. And it's very important to understand the difference and how to maintain boundaries without creating unhealthy brick wall concepts. So a good boundary with someone is, if they want to invite you over and it's just you and them, and they're the type of person where when they're alone they don't treat you very well, to say no. Okay, very important word. When setting up boundaries, learn to say no. No is the most important word you're going to learn when dealing with other people and teaching them how to treat you with respect. So when they ask you over, again, this is the situation of somebody who is treating you not so well when you are in particularly alone with them. Say no, say, hey, how about this? Instead, why don't we invite this and this person out? And by the way, I've already checked with them and they're free to do such and such. And by that, we stop them from misbehaving or mistreating us alone. And instead put them in a group environment where we know they will treat us nicely. So those are different boundaries that we can set up to keep people treating us nicely. Now, what if it's a loved one that we live with, such as a family member or romantic entanglement, and they're not treating us nicely? Like, they're saying, well, I have a checklist here, and you need to do this amount of chores to get thus amount of rewards. How do we deal with that? Well, a nice way to deal with that is say, hey, why don't we do these chores together so we have more time free to spend together? So again, we set up boundaries. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, if confrontation doesn't work, if boundaries don't work, then we're pretty much faced with the inevitable of cutting ties with them. Now, when you cut ties with someone, a lot of people think there's no nice way to cut ties with someone. This is not true. There are ways to cut ties with someone and still maintain a decent level of feeling between the two of you. Especially if you're talking a long friendship or family member, you can say, look, I need to be doing this. I need to be working on this. You need to be working on this. We don't have time to spend together right now. And therefore, you've cut ties, you've cut your time with them, and it's done nicely. Now, a lot of times in romantic relationships, there's no real nice way to do that. Essentially, in cutting ties with them, you're breaking up with them. And a lot of people in breaking up, they're not going to take it nicely. And even if you do it nicely. So when you're breaking up with someone who is, again, holding back their love, expecting so much in return for so much amount of love, you have to understand that you deserve free love. You deserve a lot of love. The mere fact that you are alive is amazing. The mere fact that you are created out of stardust is amazing. You deserve love, and that other person deserves love too. They're not there, and they may not ever get there. But you need to move forward. And that's often a good way to put it, is I need to move forward with my life. You're happy here, okay? But I'm not here anymore. I'm over here. I'm in a different place, not a better place. I'm not ahead of you. Don't put it in those terms. I'm in a different place than you, and we're not on the same wavelength anymore, or however you would like to put it. So that's often the best way that I've found to cut ties romantically when such is the case. Now, after all this is done, whether you've been able to talk it through, put up boundaries successfully, and those boundaries are teaching those people how to treat you better, or whether or not you sadly have to cut ties, what are the benefits of all of this? What are the benefits of requiring people to love you freely and respect you? Well, quite simply, a happy life. You can't live a happy life without free, boundless love. And that type of love automatically requires respect. And this is extremely important to understand. I didn't understand it for many years, and I allowed people to treat me wrongly because of it. And I was never happy. I was happy to varying degrees on certain things, but I was never really happy. And the people that surrounded me were not really happy. But now that I've learned that you have to ask for respect and for free love, and the people around me feel the same way, and they do the same thing. They ask for respect and free love. Now that my group is this people of free love and respect, I am now free to be happy. And you deserve to be happy too. And I hope that this, sharing my experiences of how I've dealt with people who disrespected me, will help you to obtain that free love. I hope you have a wonderful day, and aloha.